legend, put the rumors to rest. Squatch-D TV, they're on the case. Even Chris, no mystery, they can't face. What green hoaxes, they expose your eyes. There's a chance for the Bigfoot mysteries. Bring truth to science and clarity. Squatch-D TV, they're the real deal. Uncovering the truth, it's time to reveal. Squatch-D TV, take us on your quest. To find a legend, put the rumors to rest.
Welcome to Squatch-D TV, where the truth is first before all else. Join your hosts, veteran investigator, TV personality, and author Steve Kulls, and from the Kentucky Bigfoot Research Project and the Kentucky Fried Fixes channel, Chris Bennett. Sit back and prepare to take yourself on a journey with the longest-running Bigfoot podcast, Squatch-D TV. Here are your hosts, Steve and Chris. And good evening, cyberspace. Welcome to Squatch-D TV for today's date, April 21st, 2024. I'm your host, your guide, the Squatch Detective, Steve Kulls, along with my co-host right down there, Mr. Chris Bennett. Hello,
Steve.
hello, sir.
Good to see you, man. We're getting some cool weather back here again. I had to turn the air conditioner off and the heater back on today. So my electric bill is not going to be friendly towards the end of the month.
Nope, not at all. You know, I wonder if we can ask Mr. Steenburg about the Canadian air they keep sending down here, causing all that.
Yeah.
But hello, Mr. Steenburg.
Hello, Steve. Hello,
Good
Chris.
to see you. Good to see you, sir.
Great to see you guys.
So
I'm
good.
sorry, about them Canadian cold fronts, but the playoffs has just started, so there you go.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? I have, and you know, I'm sure as a Canadian, you are very big into hockey. I have no idea when hockey season begins or ends anymore. I know my father used to watch it quite a bit, but I never really caught on to it. I was too busy with baseball.
Yes, well, of course. Like a good American boy, you love baseball and football. A good Canadian boy, you skate almost as soon as you walk. So hockey.
But you know, one of the greatest Canadian imports is poutine.
Oh God, French fries covered in gravy. Yes.
And cheese curds. Yeah.
And cheese curds. Yes. I rarely had it.
Not a big fan, are you?
No.
Oh.
No.
Fries and gravy. I've
Chris,
never tried that.
Chris, make a mental note that we have the one Canadian in the world that hates poutine.
Oh, I don't hate it. I'm just not a big fan. There's just a lot of other things on the menu I'd rather order.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Well, you know, I like take French fries and dump a bunch of cheese on there and put a couple scoops of chili cheese fries. Those are awesome. But I've never tried French fries with gravy.
Oh, very good.
That.
Very good.
Mm-hmm.
Little hot.
Like I need to.
little hot beef gravy on French fries. Oh yeah.
Oh man.
But you know what I like is French fries with some melted cheddar cheese on it and bacon bits.
Oh, that sounds cool. Yeah. Well, you know, up here in Canada, our restaurants don't seem to offer. You know, God bless America. Every time I go down there, you seem to get so much for your buck. And up here, every day we seem to get less and less, and it's costs more and more. The same old story.
Well, the one thing we have noticed at grocery stores is things are remaining the same price, but they're getting smaller.
Yeah.
You know, even, you know what? I went to get a bottle of bourbon the other day. And the bottle of bourbon I usually buy is now smaller than the one I used to get a year ago.
Mm-hmm. But is the price still the same?
Price is still the same.
Mm. Now, see, here it would have gotten smaller and the price would have been up another 20%.
Very true.
Yeah, I'm kind of a money grubber, money pincher, penny pincher, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I'm cheap.
Okay, hold on. You know, if you look in Chris's wallet, his $1, George Washington's wearing sunglasses because he hasn't seen the light of day in so long.
Don't feel bad about your wallet, Chris. This old bugger here, this wallet of mine, I got 1985 and it's still going.
All right. Does it squeak when it opens? Mine does.
I just got it broke in right. Yeah.
But we, I would always tell the wife, she's, well, let's go out to eat tonight. You want to go eat a steak? I'm like, no, I'm not going to a steakhouse. What's wrong with you? It costs us like $60-$70, And we, usually drop by Taco Bell or Wendy's or something like that. But now it's like, well, if I'm going to pay, $70 for us all to eat Taco Bell, might as well just go ahead and have a steak somewhere else. Ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Long story short, we don't eat out much now at all.
No, so what do you fellas want to talk about in the Sasquatch world today?
Well, we're going to get into it in a second, but there's one order of business we got to get done, and that's our roll call.
Oh, yeah.
Roger that.
You got to do the roll call. And first in today, he's been the chat room champion lately, is Walter Kroll. Hello, Walter. Grizzly Creek, good to see you.
Welcome.
Pat Collins, good to see you, my brother. Heather's Channel. And she wrote 1 a.m. here in sunny Scotland. Hopefully I can stay awake long enough.
Thanks for the effort, Heather. If you can't make it, just catch us on the replay. We appreciate you.
And cheers. And we have Don Gumow Jr. from Sasquatch Research, Maine. Daniel Weeks, the infamous Buttworm, is in the house with throwing up love, Thomas Steenburg.
Oh, yeah.
Pete H. in the house. Relic Common, and of course, have a great show. Thomas is the bomb, arguably the fifth horseman, stick to the facts and never deviate from the facts. So,
no, who the hell said that? I never said
that. We got Outback Orchard. Hello, my friend from Vermont. Tennessee Cherokee, good to see you.
Cherokee.
Barb Santee, hello all.
Barb,
welcome. Grasshopper in the house. Sharon in the house. Sharon's from Belgium. So hello. Ristel, good to see you, sir. Damn,
welcome.
There's the Mick.
Hey, Mick. Good to see you, man.
We got Keith Ross, and Chris. Someone asked Tom, if you die in Canada, do you die in real life too?
Oh, hello, Henry May. He's in the house tonight.
Yeah. Boris Kahn, Henry May. Dun, dun, dun.
Good to see you, Henry.
Sharon, we already said Sharon. I said, I think we got Diane. Diane Tricks in the house. Hello,
Diane.
By the way, we just want to throw out a big happy birthday to Jimmy Trick.
Oh,
that's
birthday, Jimmy.
Charlie Wonton's birthday. And then we got you roped. Nope. 48. Unroped.
Unroped. Nope.
48.
Okay. Welcome.
Yep. See, she even said it's Charlie Wonton's birthday today. Well, a big happy birthday to them. Little Kilroy was here to see Steenburg.
Yeah.
Yep, there he is. Charlie Wonton. He's in the house.
Charlie.
So Tom Connolly is in the Tom Connolly's here.
Jimmy.
Arthur Watch, Angel Nolan, Brian and Chewy go hiking. Max Powers. Hello, Max. Low Rider. Hello, John. Sasquatch Wizard Adirondacks. Robert Denduven. Jen is also here.
Robert. Hey, Jen.
Yeah, we got a full house here tonight. I'll tell you. Keep on going. We said Brian and Chewy. I saw Mike from Tactical Bigfoot Research. He's here. The Bat Mom is here.
Bat Mom.
Kaiju Ninja 1985 in the house. I think we got. Let's
see Jermac 10. Hello, Jermac 10
is in there.
Welcome.
Yep. Mrs. Trackway is here.
Mrs. Trackway. Thank you.
Jay Fritz also here. Jay, good to see you, my friend. The tackle tactician is in the house.
Kentucky, yay! Welcome, tackle tactician.
I know the Bigfoot Society's in the house. Jeremiah is here. Dennis Conroy is here. Lester Taylor. Hello, Lester. Boy, you're slipping to be this far down in the list. Just trying to get through the rest of the list, and we should be DM Zabo in the house as well. Okay.
Yeah, I got lost a while ago, so
okay, we're at the bottom. I think I got everybody. Okay. If we missed anybody, we apologize. Because why, Chris?
Because we love you.
because the chat is hopping.
No. It's just there's so many in there. I just can't read them all.
So, Thomas wants to know what we want to cover. Well, the floor is yours. What do you think's been going on that's really important lately?
In my opinion, and this is going to start off with a bang, I think the next 5 years is going to be critical to this investigation, especially in Washington State. And the reason I say this, I always wondered, how does anything from the central area and the mountainous areas of Washington State get to the West Coast, Pacific Coast, without getting killed on the I-5 highway? Because the I-5 runs all the way from the Canadian border down through Oregon and Northern California. Anything going east to west, trying to get to the coast or back, has to cross the I-5 highway. And I've been on the I-5 at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning. That highway is usually so busy, even in those hours, it may not be cars every 40 feet, but there's always red taillights in front of you and headlights coming the other way. Okay. They have just started for the first time to build wildlife tunnels north of Vancouver under the I-5. Now, remember in a previous show, Steve, we were talking about the situation on the Trans-Canada Highway.
Yes.
Through Banff National Park.
Yes.
That started off in the early 1990s. They first had what they called the Red Flag program, which was just to try to get people to slow down, because they put a little flag everywhere where an animal was killed by a car or a truck. Everything from a squirrel to a grizzly bear. And there were just hundreds of these things all on. It was really, really depressing. But it didn't work. People wouldn't slow down. So they finally said, okay, we're going to dish out the money. We're going to build wildlife fences all along both sides of the highway through Banff National Park. And for wildlife, we'll build tunnels. Well, after a couple of years of study on that, they realized a lot of animals were reluctant to use the tunnels because predators usually ambush there and things like that when they learn how to ambush. And so they built overpasses and covered them with trees and stuff for the wildlife to get through. And in all those years, they studied it enough. They knew that grizzly bears that were alive when the tunnels and the overpasses were built wouldn't use them. But bears born and weaned since their construction don't seem to have a problem with them. Okay?
Interesting.
And they would put cameras out on these tunnels and wildlife crossings to monitor what was using it. Now, the out area here is those cameras were not 365 days a year, 24/7. They put a couple out a week here, and then they would move them to another one a week there, blah, blah, blah. But since the mid-1990s, they do have footage of every damn thing you can possibly think of, except guess what?
A Sasquatch.
Right. They even got footage of some pretty strange-looking people. So, yeah. So, that bothered me. But the out is the cameras are not 24/7. Now, apparently, these cameras in Washington State that will be monitoring these new wildlife tunnels under the I-5 freeway will be 365 days a year, 24/7, and recording constantly. I even heard now it just started. They've already got some video footage of a grizzly bear that they didn't think was down that far south. So it worked. Now, the next 5 years are going to be critical, in my opinion, because if they get footage of everything we know is there, and they don't get footage of a Sasquatch, well, then that argues very strongly, at least in my opinion, that perhaps there's no Sasquatch to film.
Right.
Yeah.
Would it be, do you think perhaps they may get a video or a picture of a Sasquatch and just not release it?
I don't see why they would. I honestly don't. I don't buy any government conspiracy theories and stuff. I don't think the government's trying to hold. They just don't care. You know, as long as it's in the realm of myth and mythology, they don't give a damn. You know,
Because
until it affects the bottom line, money, in some way, they don't care.
Well, I think it may, because as you know, back in the 80s, they shut down hundreds of thousands of dollars in logging industry due to the spotted owl.
Oh, yes, but that was an environmental, they considered that an environmental threat to the spotted owl's existence.
Right. Well, they may consider that with the Sasquatch existence. We can't take their habitats.
Well, again, they're already, the restrictions on logging are already in place. I mean, with it's much more harder to clear cut today than it was in the 60s and 70s. They're not allowed to go in hodgepodge and just cut whatever they want.
But there's another reason too that I think I mean, and I'm not saying there's a cover up. I'm just saying that they may suppress those because they don't want the hassle. See, that is totally an American attitude. Is we just don't want the hassle. We had a sheriff go out and try to claim that it was this college student living near a house that caused the Georgia dash cam footage.
Right.
But there was no paperwork, any official paperwork filed, no Freedom of Information Act paperwork. But the bottom line was this is the reason why is you have these denials is because they didn't want a bunch of nuts running around with guns in a certain area.
Yeah, but that was also the excuse in 1969 after that sighting near Cougar, Washington. They did have a lot of people running around with guns. But again, it all comes down to public interest. And quite frankly, the government can't keep a secret if its life depends on it. Unless it's national defense and something the military is involved with, they can't keep a secret. Like someone's going to blab. And
one would hope.
Yeah. And I understand that they're planning on making these cameras available to the internet, so you can basically monitor them and look at it right on your screen.
Wow, that would be awesome.
Yeah. So I hope that's true. Yep. But in my opinion, these next 5 years or maybe even 10 years, because I generally think that if the Sasquatch does indeed exist, there's probably only one for every 100 bears in any given area. And any more than that, I think they'd be Seymour and any fewer than that, it doesn't seem to be a viable breeding population.
And Max Powers brings up a good point too. In the East Coast, we have a lot of cougar / mountain lion sightings, and we have trail cam pictures of them.
Yep.
But consistently, either the DEC or which is in New York, we call it the DEC, Department of Environmental Conservation, or Fish and Game, will always denounce, saying, "Oh, no, that's not a mountain lion," when it clearly is.
Yeah, officially, the eastern puma in the United States went extinct around the time of the start of the American Civil War.
Right,
and now they're trying to determine. That my understanding is they're trying to determine, is this in fact the eastern puma, or has the western cougar somehow migrated further east than it ever did before, blah, blah, blah. They don't know. Is it the Florida panther that's moving north? Again, they don't really know. It's going to, unfortunately, I think what it's going to take is one's going to have to get killed on the highway or something. They're going to have to examine the corpse.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And
hopefully it's not the last one.
Yeah. Like I said, though, in New York, they'll straight up deny. Mm-hmm. And I actually had a police officer who had one on his game camera, and he submitted to him, said, "Hey, I'm a law enforcement officer," and this was, and they said, "No, that's not a mountain lion." Mm-hmm. And then what is it?
Yeah, well, the eastern puma is just another subspecies of the western cougar,
right?
Or was a little smaller,
right?
But a lot more, just as elusive, and it probably still exists. They were having reports on them in eastern Canada for years.
Sure.
Yeah, and it's only, they don't recognize borders; they'll cross them.
Oh, yeah.
They'll spread. Yeah.
Yeah, those cats don't need passports.
Yeah. But to me, this is going to be a key time. And if we don't get footage of a Sasquatch on these cameras by 2030, I have to really, really wonder why. Other than the fact that the whole thing is myth and mythology, or if it did exist, it does no longer.
Right.
Yeah.
And then again, you have to look at, is the Sasquatch smart enough to say, hey, this may be a trap. I'm not going to go near it.
Well, again, why would a Sasquatch even give a damn? I mean, it's just going about its business.
Well, I think that they intrinsically have this ability to worry about putting themselves in precarious. I mean, like us, we walk around the woods. We're always looking to make sure we don't go someplace we shouldn't be.
Yeah, and we always get picked up on cameras.
Right.
Right.
We do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's a very interesting postulation,
Mm-hmm.
and we shall see. Maybe it'll catch something, but even if it doesn't, I think there's going to be a bunch of people saying, "Yeah, they're just suppressing it," and yada yada.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's the merry-go-round that always comes through.
Right. Exactly.
The people who look at this as not a mystery to be solved, but more like a faith to be pushed.
Right. Exactly.
They'll never accept any explanation contrary to what they want it to be.
Yep.
Yeah, and to me, we're researchers. We are trying to find an answer. We are not religious fanatics pushing a faith.
Correct.
We're not priests on a pulpit. Thou shalt believe in Sasquatch or face the consequences.
Can I get a tree knock?
But, like I was fixing to say, I don't know how they travel in Washington State. I don't know anything about Sasquatch anywhere other than from what I've seen here in Kentucky. And usually they go by the rivers or the streams. And so it seems to me, if they're crossing under I-5, under a bridge that's, near going over a river, that you'll never detect them either, unless there's cameras there.
Absolutely. That's why cameras are so important. And they're very important for the simple reason. Unlike Canada, these cameras will be 24/7, 365 days a year. They're not going to be taken out, put in like 2 weeks over the year and forgotten about, because that's always the out. I mean, I had an idea 15 years ago. I called it the Coquihalla Project. It was for the Coquihalla Highway that runs between Kamloops and Hope here. It was built in 1986. They don't have overpasses, they just have tunnels. And I had the idea then that if we could place a solar-powered trip camera to cover those wildlife tunnels 24/7, 365 days a year, and it would have to cover all the creek tunnels and river tunnels as well, anything big enough for a man to get through.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how long it would take. 5 years, 6 years, 8 years, I don't know. 24/7, 365 days. And we got video footage or photographic footage of everything we knew was there. And we don't get a Sasquatch. That would convince me there's no Sasquatch to get. But the problem is I don't have $1 million to throw away. Yeah. So there you go.
Well, the one ugly thing too is I would think that at some point some knucklehead is going to put a Sasquatch costume on, go running by one of those costumes, and that's going to destroy any argument that anybody has for or against this, because they're going to say, somebody's going to say, look, there was a Sasquatch on this day.
Yeah. And one of the things said when I had the idea of the Coquihalla Project, said it'd have to be done in secret.
Yep.
Well, you wouldn't get clowns in ghillie suits and stuff playing games. Yeah.
And this one obviously is not a secret, so we may have games too, and there's gonna be one that's gonna be so ambiguous that everybody's gonna be like, well, we can't really tell.
Yeah,
I have a feeling that's probably what would end up happening.
Look what happened to Terry Reams in December 6, 1975. Remember him?
No, I was 6 years old at the time.
Oh yeah, okay. On the I-84, which goes along the Columbia River. This damn thing was in the middle of the highway. It even struck a camper.
Right.
And he wasn't the only witness. There was a dozen others, including apparently three Washington State patrolmen, or maybe it was Oregon State Patrolman. I can't remember. I think it was on the south side, so that'd be Oregon. And he phoned into the police. He said, well, you're the 9th person to call it in, including 2 cops. The thing was terrified. It was stuck in the traffic, and it's not as busy as the I-5, but that highway is usually pretty busy.
Right.
Yep.
And it actually struck a vehicle as it was going. But you know what the real odd thing is? None of these other people who saw it that night have ever come forward, just Terry Reams and his family.
That does happen, though.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's plenty of people that may witness the drive-by shooting or a bank robbery or, some sort of altercation, but very rarely, only a very small percentage come forward.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, we have a guy in our chat, Pat Collins, who was actually at a roadside crossing of one, and there was a car at a stop sign watching the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he took off, and the other car took off, and he was the only one that reported it.
Well, you got to appreciate the patience of people too.
Yeah.
I mean, to someone who's had a good, clear sighting close up, and they know in their own minds that the Sasquatch does exist, and assuming they are, people like me must sound like an absolute idiot. Because here I have been doing research for over 40 years, and I have yet to have a close-up sighting, and I've never seen one, and I still question its existence, But to someone who has actually seen one close up, they must think, boy, you gullible damn fool.
No, not really. I really don't, because the mission is, I was, when did I have my sighting? 2011. So I was in it for about 13 years when I had my first sighting, naked eye sighting. Then I had one even closer a year later, and that was it. And I still don't think that way of people that, I still say the mission is unchanged and it should be unchanged, regardless of what I've seen or not. I can't let my bias, or my own experience bias my future investigations or anything, even about the mystery. You have to keep it real. You have to take your own biases and flush them. And that's the only way you stay true to the cause. Because if I sit there and use my own experience as a bias, then I'm going to think everybody is telling the truth about Bigfoot when really they don't. And that is kind of the pitfalls that a lot of people fall into after they have a Bigfoot sighting, is that everybody is telling the truth.
Yeah, and the one thing that I remember, the one time I may have had a sighting, and I won't even say it was a Sasquatch because the subject was just too far away. That was in March of 2004. I've told you about this before.
Yeah.
I saw a figure. It was jet black in color, and it appeared to be walking upright. It covered that area and that opening in the forest where the big power lines go through. It covered it in about 4 seconds. It wasn't time to bring my Land Rover to a stop and get out the camera, and it was gone. The only thing backup I had was a fellow named John Miles was in the truck with me, and I said, "Did you see that?" He said, "Yes, I did." He saw it too. Now, but the facts also are it was too far away to see details, so I can't say for certain it wasn't some big, strange-looking man way up there. What he was doing there, I have no idea. And why he was that big, I have no idea. But again, I saw a figure. Those are the facts. I don't know what. I can't identify it. But if there was a Sasquatch, I sure like to believe it was one. And it's sure big. Matter of fact, the way I remember, this thing was big even for a Sasquatch. Because I think if I put a 7-foot guy up to where that was and went back my bench, because I'd hardly see him at all.
Yeah. Could have been 8 foot.
Yeah. Or more. Yeah.
I know when we measured the one I had seen the first year, it was about 8 foot tall. The second one I saw was only 5.5 feet tall.
Yeah.
And I actually saw that at a closer range.
Mm-hmm.
It was within 50 feet of me, and getting out of a tent. And
it was gone.
I mean, it didn't wait till I actually emerged from the tent. When I got out, it was in process of booking out of there because it had heard me go zip.
Yeah. It's always, and I've talked to so many witnesses and interviewed so many people who told me if they hadn't looked right at it, they would not have known it was there. Yeah. It was standing that still. And it usually only moves when it knows it's been spotted, and then it leaves.
Well, truthfully, the first one I had seen was actually standing right next to a utility pole.
Mm-hmm.
And I just put and the only reason why I'd seen it there is because I looked up the road and down the road. When I was looking up the road, there it was standing next to it, and the eye shine hit me back.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like a 40-second standoff.
Right.
And
you're never. It's never too late to admit you could be wrong about things. I may be totally out to lunch, and everything I believe in this mystery. Like another example is, and in 2019, but before 2019 in August, I could never understand why some people would describe glowing red eyes. I said, why are you trying to make it sound scary? I've seen glowing eyes in the dark from almost every plant of wildlife you can think of, and it's always white or a little yellowish, oranges, but never red. Then it's 2 o'clock in the morning on the east side of Harrison Lake. Go around the corner, and I see 2 red lights down there by the road. At first, I thought they were reflectors on an old signpost or something, but then they turned away.
Same thing happened to me as well with 2 other researchers.
Yeah, and I did not think Sasquatch at the time because, quite frankly, there were only raccoon hide off the road. Right. It wasn't until I stopped and got out with my flashlight I realized there's a 9-foot ditch there that if my car went in, I would completely disappear. You know, so what that was, I don't know. I have no idea, but the eyes were bright red. And that's the first time. So I had to eat a lot of crow and apologize to everyone I ever questioned when they described self-illuminating or not self-illuminating, but red eye reflex. I said, you were right, and I was 100% wrong. Well, it is possible for eyes, in some instances, to reflect bright red. I never thought I'd see that myself, and I finally did. Yep.
So there was another time, I was kind of blessed because when I had my sighting, I had a whole camp full of people 120 feet away from me.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time I radioed to the team inside the camp, they came out. It had already gone because I shot and it walked around the southwestern side of the camp. And now the team inside the camp doesn't know what's going on. I said, I need Ops Team A out here now. They came out. What's going on? Would you see what's going on? And while they're talking to me, somebody in the base camp goes, hey, we got a lot of movement going on the southwest side of the camp. Because whatever I had seen started walking, on the far side of the camp. And what it was doing is all the leaves have dropped that night. It was watching our campfire. It was watching us at the campfire. We were their entertainment. We were their TV.
Mm-hmm.
And the second time when I saw the little one, I didn't say nothing to anybody until the next morning until somebody said, something left a birch log behind my vehicle last night.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, and what we were doing during the day was we were collecting birch logs, which was amazing. So you have all these little weird idiosyncrasies that go on that, and that's when I said, well, I wasn't going to say anything, but because that was my first reaction. The second time I had a sighting was like, no, I couldn't have just seen that. And, but the next time I used a tree that night, I used a flashlight.
I've had so many people say to me that they didn't see or hear anything, but they just had a feeling they were being watched. Yeah. Well, so of course you were. You were in the woods. The second you stepped into it, you're being watched.
Always, yeah.
There's always a dozen set of eyes on you. Everything from birds, squirrels, or possibly something even bigger.
Yep, absolutely. So we got a ton of questions too. We need to get to as well, don't we, Chris?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Yeah.
No, we're there. They're building up.
I've been kind of starring the questions there. You guys in the chat, if you could help me out a little bit, if you got a question, put it in caps because I do not have my reading glasses on. But I'll try to catch them as best I can.
All right. Why don't you start with question number 1 there on the top there?
All righty. This is from Robert Denduven. He wants to know, has Thomas had any interaction with a 1970s Bigfoot group from San Fran named the Bay Area Group?
Individuals who are now passed away, but that was after the Bay Area Group had disbanded. Yeah. The Bay Area Group was big in the late 60s, early 70s. Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry,
they were a good crew, though sometimes Lummy there would go off in a little bit of the weird and wonderful, but other than that, it was pretty cool. They were a pretty cool bunch of guys. Yeah.
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 You want to get the next one, Steve?
Yes, I'm sorry. I had to let the office assistant back inside the office.
Oh,
He was
okay.
knocking on the door. So anyway, this one's from Boris Kahn. Says, Mr. Steenburg, who would you call the current four horsemen of Bigfootery?
Well, Steve Kulls and Chris Bennett there.
God, no.
I don't need any more titles.
Okay, I don't know if there's any four horsemen, but a group of guys I hang out with, and we're part of a group that's called the Bookwash Crew. That's Jerry Matthews, Bill Reed, Leon Thompson, and a guy who does not wish to be identified. I'll just call him J and C.
How is Leon doing?
Four horsemen compared to Green, DeHinden, and Byrne, and Krantz. I mean, I don't know. That was a different era. And there are a lot of good researchers. Unfortunately, they're far outnumbered by the inmates running the asylum. So who would be the four horsemen today? Well, Rick Knoll was good. Daniel Perez.
Meldrum,
of course. Yes.
maybe John Moynizinski.
I don't know. I don't even know you can use that label anymore.
Yeah.
Well, I think
Bindernagel for sure would have been.
Oh, the late John Bindernagel was a first-rate researcher. Yeah. Yes, I really got along with him well.
And then there was Dr. Leroy Fish at one time when he was alive.
Yeah. Diane Stocking in Florida was great for many years, and in Oregon, real common sense.
Over the years, we've got actually, hundreds of people, if not thousands of people, are interested in Bigfoot and doing active research. So it would be kind of hard to pinpoint it, I would think.
Yeah,
there's so many people out there, doing the boots on the ground.
Back in the day, we had. Even when I got into it back in the late '90s, there was really not a really big. The voices were few and far between.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have social media the way we have it today. We didn't have YouTube. We just had bulletin boards and books.
Yeah.
And people, posting handbills. Hey, Bigfoot talk. I mean, it was local for many of the ways.
And there was far fewer people really interested in following up then. Like I started in the mid to late 70s, and Green, DeHinden, Krantz, and Byrne were basically the guys you went to for information. And half the time you couldn't get them in the same room together. So
yeah.
And then
on the East Coast, you had Dr. Warren Cook.
Yeah.
Who was an anthropologist at Castleton State University.
Yeah, Don Keating in Ohio. Yeah.
Okay, next question. And I'll follow up with this one too. Is I have a friend of mine claims to have seen them run across I-90 not far from me at early morning hours. And here is a funny commentary to that is that I used to interact with a lot of Canadian truck drivers that were coming from Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to tell me stories of seeing them run across Interstate 87, the Adirondack Northway.
Mm-hmm.
Frequently. So that kind of resonates too. So, I mean, if there's an interstate there, they're not attuned not to run across one in the middle of the night.
It's a pity they don't run across more often when a car with a dash cam.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well,
so many of the reports were road sightings, them crossing in front of cars or off to the side or stuff like that. And yet now that so many cars have dash cams, well, the few videos are open to interpretation. We don't really know what there was.
Right.
And we've already had one hoaxer killed in Montana.
Yeah, the guy that got pinballed off a couple of cars driven by 18-year-old girls.
Yeah.
Which is horrible for them.
Yeah.
I just wanted to finding the trackway put out there. We prefer the term Shetland pony sled riders.
We have another question up here, Chris from Kaiju. You want to take that one?
Let's click back in here. From Kaiju Ninja 1985. Thomas, with not having a sighting for that long, what keeps you going on investigating?
Pig-headedness, stubbornness. My late wife would say carefully plotted insanity.
Masochism.
I just want to know one way or the other. I mean, I've been obsessed with this mystery ever since I was old enough to read. And there isn't an hour in the day goes by I don't think about the Sasquatch. And when I was in the Army, and we rarely had time up, and when we did, all the other guys would go hit the bars and go chasing women, whereas I went in the bush looking for large bipedal apes. And yes, that made me the odd one out. That made me the oddball. So it's I don't know. I just want to know. I mean, I really don't think on this in terms of proving it to the public in general. I keep going because I want to know. I want to know.
Yeah.
Whether it's a fact, a flesh and blood creature population out there, or the whole thing is myth and mythology and a great piece of North American folklore. And even that makes it worth studying and cataloging.
Yep.
Well, Thomas, earlier you told us you think you may have had a sighting. You're not. I know you're critical of yourself, all right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but you said it crossed a power line cut.
Yeah.
And it was running, right?
No, it seemed to be walking.
Okay.
Walking. And I basically saw it from the knees up, because what it was walking in was that tall.
Right.
Okay. It was jet black. I mean, pure jet black. And that's what I saw, a figure. And it just crossed. It was already halfway across when I first spotted it. And I just saw it for the last 4 seconds before it disappeared into the trees on the right-hand side. I brought the Land Rover for the hut, opened the door, grabbed the camera. It was gone. I looked at John Miles, who was in the passenger. He said, "Did you see that?" He said, "Yes, I did." And that was it. And John Miles, he lives out there in 20 Mile. And he's had a number of incidents over the years as he's been out there, and he wonders about. Yeah.
Now, the next one is actually a question. And it's, well, Thomas, some people claim to see Sasquatch behind every bush, rock, and tree in the forest every time they step outside. I think they're full of horse feathers. The only question I have is, does that also include the land between the lakes? Sorry, I had to throw that in there.
Anyone who claims multiple incidents and can never back it up except take my word for it, there's a big red flag right there.
Yep.
Okay. Inmates running the asylum.
Yeah, I remember saying to this guy, you know, he was coming up with it was a Facebook post saying, "Oh, well, they do this, they do that, and they know your intentions and all this other stuff."
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to be clear of mind and spirit. I'm like, you know, and I said, well, what scientific where is the scientific evidence behind that? Mm-hmm. He goes, well, unless you've seen them, you wouldn't know that. I go, well, actually, I've seen 2 of them. He goes, well, until you see 35 of them, you have nothing. I'm like, okay, buddy.
Wow. That's a tall order.
Fact. True story.
Well, I'm sure he sees them in his dreams. Yeah.
So that's when I put, oh, okay. Now I know what I'm dealing with. Have a good day.
Yeah. And researchers, the biggest problem is researchers. Too many, other than lunatic inmates running the asylum, you know, people are just weird and just want to pretend they're Mulder and Scully, you know, and because it fills some void in their lives. There is... I made up a term years ago. I call it Ivan Marks syndrome. Okay, because Ivan Marks is the first example of this I ever knew. Ivan Marks syndrome refers to any researcher who may have been involved in something authentic once, you know, and they're the center of attention for a while. But when that attention died down, it turned out the attention was more important than the subject. So they started hoaxing to remain the center of attention, hoping that they'll come across something authentic in the meantime. And it works until they get caught. And of course, to me, and I'm only expressing my opinion, the biggest example of that now is one Todd Standing. I personally do not believe a word the man says. That's just my opinion. Yeah. Nope. What was that?
I think that was Ivan's protege.
Don't get me a sample.
Yeah, it's like really weird because for the longest time, Todd was like the only Canadian embarrassment, when it came to the Bigfoot world. But now you got people like Randy Brisson and was it Mike Patterson, Sasquatch Ontario, Isdall, How to Hunt Dude, who's just reading stories and every once in a while posts a real clickbaity type post trying to imply he's got evidence, but really it was just.
Well, there have been some YouTube channels that I have watched, and one of them, it had an interesting video. I was like, it caught my attention, and you could see like a creature moving in the woods a little bit, and I was thinking, wow, this is great. Well, as it turned out, and as time went by, this guy started posting a video every day of, here's what I filmed today of Bigfoot in the woods, and then, eventually you could, it was exposed, you could see where it was a suit and stuff like that. And those guys, man, this kills me.
The problem is, it's like I said, publicity does strange things to some people.
I mean,
and it fills some void. Like, well, let's not get into individuals, but I don't know what the hell you can't help it. Todd Standing started off in the late '90s by trying to promote a low budget horror film called Sylvanic.
Correct. Yep.
And I have a copy of it. It's the usual typical story: people going in the bush, girls with big boobs getting knocked off one by one. That kind of thing. And then he was saying he was looking for this. He discovered this mysterious valley in the Lougheed Park region, the Kananaskis country of Alberta, an area I spent over 20 years in. And he went through this hole in the, and of course, when he talks about himself, he's like Mr. JTF2. He's super commando. He crawled over a mile up that creek, and again, that kind of thing. It's just ridiculous. And the whole story stuck from the beginning, but people fall for it. And he started producing these photographs. The first one was of a blonde one. We called that the David Bowie Sasquatch, where you basically got the face and head, but you couldn't see anything else. It was like he was only 8 feet from it. And for some reason, it's looking straight ahead, not at this human down at its crotch with a camera. And then he came out with the Blinky picture and the Blinky video, which is we call that the Chewbacca Sasquatch. Again, just a head and shoulders. He couldn't get anything else. And he's all kinds of films of this and that, usually of him running around outside his tent with flares saying, "Get out of here!"
I've seen that.
Yeah. And he conned a lot of people. I mean, even Les Stroud. Les Stroud was out there. He said he heard something. He said no one knew he was there. Well, of course he knew you were. Todd Standing's the one that dropped you off. He knew exactly where you were.
Yeah.
Use your common sense. But again, there you go. Some people still think, he's God's gift to the Sasquatch field, and everything he says is true. Well, fine, go ahead.
And now there's this.
Go ahead. Yeah.
This wonderful, and I hear this very often. Well, I know Todd's fake and stuff, but I believe he started off as a legitimate person. And I'm like, no, he did not. He kept saying the Sylvanic area was this area only known to the First Nations people. Well, Sylvanic is not even a First Nations type of name. It's a Latin name. And it's very coincidental. His mother was named Sylvia. So it's like all this nonsense with, people trying to stick up for him, even a little bit of a sense.
Mm-hmm. The difference why Todd Standing got so much attention was, I'm only expressing my opinion, for a while at least, he had money to spend on his hoaxing. Yeah.
Right.
But when you see the BC government lose, you can't just walk away. I mean, those lawyers got to be paid. Even And his pay-per-view videos didn't pay off like they were hoping he would. So, but again, that's a whole. It just goes on and on and on.
And the funny thing was, his lawsuit was not about presenting Bigfoot evidence. A lot of people thought in the United States that, oh my goodness, he's fighting for the Sasquatch. He's presenting evidence to the Canadian government. He didn't. The whole basis, and I actually downloaded the entire lawsuit.
Mm-hmm.
The basis of the lawsuit was the Canadian government was violating his civil rights for it because he believes in Bigfoot and they're not acknowledging that.
Mm.
That was the argument.
Well, they did acknowledge it. They said, we don't buy it, but you can believe what you want.
And then
it's like I said, politicians are politicians until it affects the bottom line. They don't care if Sasquatch exists or not. They don't care.
Yep. Reminds me of certain video platforms too, Chris. Anyway,
Boris Kahn said, love me some Steenburg, honestly.
Amen.
Well, Sasquatch field, half the people love me, half think I'm the devil. So
my question is what the hell happened to Adrian Erickson and the Erickson Project?
Well, Adrian Erickson, after he bought the Carter Coy farm, that was the last I heard of it.
And he also bought the farm in Kentucky, the ORV Kentucky farm.
Yeah. After that, I think he sort of realized, I think he really believed what he was being told and ignored warnings from myself and other people. And the realization that he was being taken sunk in, and he just did what so many people do. He tried to quietly go away and get on with his life and try to get back some of the money he lost.
But what I heard was that he got out mainly because of the real estate crunch in 2008. That's what
that hit him hard.
Yeah. In fact, I remember Janice Carter complaining because Adrian was paying her to stay there.
Mm-hmm.
And here it was that we thought this was going to be a really legit, scientifically based program, and he had a good scientist, Lee Lahad Sheikh, attached to it. And I forget the other. He had a decent researcher attached to it too. I forget his name though.
Fole is his name.
Yes, Dennis Fole.
Dennis Fole. Yeah.
That all seemed to have just kind of went by the wayside. And then when he had left, the scraps he had left of this so-called documentary, he hitched his wagon to Melba Ketchum.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was his last ditch effort to try to monetize the whole thing.
Yeah.
So again, we get involved into money being a priority over ethics.
Right.
And after that, after 2012, he kind of faded off into the limelight, from the light and went off into the sunset, never to be heard of again right now.
Yeah. And then that Matilda video turned out. I mean, it was obvious a Chewbacca mask. Why he couldn't see that, I don't understand that.
And I don't know why, but the Matilda video, somehow I associate with Randy Bresson.
Well, I think Randy Bresson was he asked me a few times, and he didn't like what I had to say, so Erickson stopped talking to me. But Randy Bresson was one of his advisors up here. Yeah, because he was taken in by Randy and his storytelling as well.
Right. And I think a lot of Americans don't know Randy Bresson as much as the Canadians do.
Yeah.
Because he himself has kind of faded off into that sunset as well.
Well, no, he's still there. He's got his clits and his little subscribers and stuff. He still pops up every now and then. Yeah. And really, Randy is a human being. You couldn't ask for a nicer guy. I mean, same thing with the late Paul Freeman. I knew him well. And Paul Freeman, he's the kind of guy who'd take his shirt off his back for you. And the world were filled with Paul Freemans, it would be a better place. But for some reason, on this subject, Ivan Mark syndrome.
Yep.
In my opinion, yeah.
I mean, this is where our opinions kind of delineate. I kind of believe Freeman.
Well,
a lot of that's based on what Meldrum has written about him.
Absolutely. I mean, a lot of the tracks works. You know, Meldrum had me scratching my head too, because what he was saying made sense.
Right.
Yeah. But I know for a fact that the video people keep asking about, that was only one. That was one of two videos that Paul Freeman shot over the years. Well, a whole series of still photos. I'm still convinced that there he goes video that Paul Freeman shot was his son Dwayne in a suit.
Right. And
I think it's the same suit they used 8 years before in that you saw in an episode of Positivity Northwest, where a still photographs that Freeman claimed to have shot in the Blue Mountains. But you know, I believe Paul Freeman. I defended him after his first sighting for much longer than I should have. But it was Rennie that told me, go talk to Odd and go talk to this guy, go talk to that guy. And I did. And I listened. And I learned. and I said, well, I think Rennie has a point. I mean, the last time I saw Paul Freeman was in a coffee shop just, you know, a few months before he passed away. And first he said, you're not going to grill me again, are you, Tom? I said, you bet I am. And I mean, again, I cut nothing other than his claims in the Sasquatch. Every other aspect of life. What a great guy. I mean, a reliable, super human being. But, you know, and Randy Brissendale, I like the guy.
I've never met him. Seems like a nice enough
guy.
guy.
I like the guy, but he lied to me, and I caught him.
Well, you see, here's the interesting thing. As much as shite as I have given Todd Standing, and like I said, I don't speak bad of him personally. I mean, there are things I know personally about him that may not live up to my standards, but I don't believe that this is a forum for that.
Yeah, right? Well, I just simply say no. I got one standard answered when I'm asked about Todd Standing. I just simply say I don't believe a word he says.
Right, and he's never attacked MK Davis, another guy. We beat him up on the massacre stuff, always keeping it to the massacre stuff. And again, never a bad word out of his mouth about me as well.
Well, while we're on
and while we're on that topic, they also understand what fair use is too.
Yeah. Well, while we're on the Freeman video, I'm going to cover one question that was on there. And Bristol asked, Thomas, do you still feel that the Freeman video was a hoax? Okay, we've answered that. And if so, why?
Because Paul Freeman faked stuff before this. I mean, you just look at you look at the full footage. It's an interesting video, and if I'm wrong and someone can prove to me I'm wrong, I'll admit I'm wrong. But my personal opinion on the Paul Freeman footage is just what I know about Paul Freeman. There's really nothing in the video other than the prints almost look like they were carved out of the ground. Like, you notice all the debris and everything around them is not in the tracks themselves. That they're carved out. The whole thing seems set up to me.
But then again, the same has been said about Roger Patterson.
Of course, and people say, "Oh, Roger Patterson is an individual." Rennie used to call him the little bullshit artist. Matter of fact, Rennie spent the first 9 years or so trying to prove that the Patterson film was a fake because he didn't trust Roger Patterson.
Yep.
And I kind of look at Roger Patterson. I never met him. Because he died in 1972. But what I learned of him in the Yakima region, it was, I've told you this before, he was like Mr. Haney in that old Green Acres show. Everybody knew him. Most people like him, but everybody also knew, for God's sakes, don't lend him any money because you'll never get it back.
Right. Yeah. And that's and you know, people give Greg Long a lot of shit for that. But you know, you've been to Yakima and you've talked to people, and what Greg Long said about, you know, people in Yakima, what they said about Roger Patterson was pretty similar. Yeah.
But Greg Long had an agenda.
Correct.
He focused on what people said that led to his. What it
did, it gave him a confirmation bias.
Right.
And he proceeded with that confirmation bias, ignoring.
Well, he wrote a book, but he screwed himself because it was the book was all ready to publish. And then It sounds like a cigarette. Philip Morris
Yes.
story came out. And it was, you could tell that chapter, which was the last chapter, was a last minute add on because it completely contradicted the previous 400 pages.
Yes.
You know, and he thought he pulled the rabbit out of the hat, but really this rabbit bit him in the ankle.
Yeah, because you have Hieronymus saying the suit was made of this, and you have Morris saying the suit was made of that. I guess Hieronymus said the suit was like 5 pieces, and Morris said it was 4 pieces.
Mm-hmm.
And what a lot of people didn't know was Philip Morris was at the time he made those claims was under the magnifying glass and being sued by the creators of Barney because he was making Barney knockoff suits.
Yeah.
So they were suing him for trademark infringement. And then all of a sudden, during that time period, he decides, I'm going to go public with, but he could never prove that Roger ever. I mean, he sits there as he claims the story goes, he sits there and says, oh my gosh, that's my suit. Well, wouldn't you go back and get the record of the purchase of the suit and keep that? No, he doesn't have any records that the suit was ever sold. A suit like that was ever sold to Roger Patterson.
Philip Morris was a carny.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a carny, and he made suits for all you saw. They even used one of them in a James Bond film, Diamonds Are Forever. Zana, the woman who changes into a gorilla before your very eyes. You see this woman dress up like some Zulu princess, and she backs into the shadows. And then suddenly the guy in the gorilla costume charges the bars and makes everyone fall back. That was the kind of thing Philip Morris was involved with at the time. Yeah, and it wasn't years and years later that he claimed he was the one that made the suit for Patterson, but he was just a carny. He was trying to grab glory that wasn't his.
What do you think of Hieronymus?
Well, Bob Hieronymus, I don't believe him either. I don't believe he wore the suit that day.
No.
In my opinion, if the Sasquatch does indeed exist, Roger Patterson and Bob Gimlin filmed one October 20th, 1967. We can devote a whole show to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know Bob's story changed.
Yeah.
From just only showing his mother and I think a nephew or something or a cousin at the house. And then all of a sudden, several months later, he's saying, well, ask anybody at the bar. I showed him at the bar. Well, that's funny.
Yeah.
He said you only had done this. And when you have such a story shift as a trained interrogator, I'm going, something smells here.
Yeah. And he was, I wrote a whole an article, review of his book. And I pointed out pages of mistakes. He even had the date for the Battle of Guadalcanal wrong.
Yeah, Roger Knights did a real good job too on that.
Yeah. And again, he had an agenda. He was trying to prove it, and he got a lot of attention when his book came out. And he had his 15 minutes, and it's gone.
Yep. And then there was the whole lie detector show that Hieronymus took, where he passed it supposedly. But so did Roger Patterson pass a lie detector test.
Yeah.
So what is
that? And there's a reason lie detectors are not considered evidence in court. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Correct. Okay. Lester Taylor asked Thomas, what do you think of the nests found? I think he's talking about the Olympic project.
The Olympic project is a good group of people. I actually went down there and spent some time with them a couple of years ago. For the most part, they seem to be individuals who have a zoological approach to this mystery. They do have a few with some sort of out there, but they kind of like to compare things, and they keep them around to compare notes and stuff. And they're a good group. I like them.
Nice.
Yeah.
Here's a brief question. Tackle Tactician says, Thomas, what year is your Land Rover? Gearhead here.
My old Land Rover, which I no longer have, was a 1978 Series 3, ex-British Army.
There you go.
Yeah.
Right. Military stuff. Yeah.
And does the Canadian Bigfoot have a Canuck accent? And Canuck is spelled with a C, not a K.
Well, you don't know what one real big difference between Canadian descriptions of Sasquatch and American?
I have no idea.
You ever notice that when people draw in the United States Sasquatch or do statues of it, or he's always ripped. He looks like Schwarzenegger in his prime with hair.
Get to the chopper.
Yeah. Canadians describe he may be big and powerful, but he's more like Andre the Giant.
Yeah.
He's not ripped. He's just big in general. Yeah. Yeah. That's one major difference I noticed between the two cultures. Yeah. And that and the fact that Bigfoot is everywhere, especially in the Pacific Northwest. You know, Bigfoot burgers or Bigfoot pizza by this, that. The only place really in all of British Columbia like that is Harrison Hot Springs. Yeah.
Okay, Boris Kahn has a really good question, and it's for an opinion. And on the opposite side, who are the foremost embarrassing researchers? Hang on. Should we?
That list is so long.
Hang on. Well, let's predicate this. Okay, here we go.
Are you expressing my opinion? Okay, all right. The late Eric Beckford.
Oh, hang on.
Weird.
Oh, hold on.
Might even have a parallel universe where Tom Biscardi is honest.
I knew you'd find that one.
That was one of the all-time greats right there.
By the way, Tom Biscardi's on that list too. Yeah. Todd Stanley, of course.
Give me a Snapple.
Yeah. Todd Stanley, of course. I don't believe a word he says. The list is so long. I mean, we could do another show on that. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good enough for now. Another question. Thomas, does Sasquatch still drink kokanee beer, or did he switch to Bud Light?
Nope, kokanee. No one drinks Bud Light.
Tackle Tactician again. Thomas, do you think with all the Bigfoot shows like Finding Bigfoot have a positive or negative effect on the subject?
Definitely a negative. And I'll tell you why. I mean, what you put them all together, you got Duck Dynasty looks for Sasquatch. They're ridiculous for the most part. Okay, for the most part. Fighting Bigfoot tries, but they admit it. They did a show up here, and I helped them get all the people that they had in their auditorium here in Harrison were people from my file, so I asked to go, right? And they said it to me. They admitted it to me. The people behind the camera, the producers and the directors said, our goal is to justify another season. Right. We are a show, okay? The worst thing that can ever happen to us is we find Sasquatch. You know, and they admitted it. And Matt Moneymaker told me once, we just hope the show gets people to think a little bit. Okay. And let's face it, there are a lot of shows that have been around the last 15 years that make Finding Bigfoot look like a Smithsonian special.
Right.
I mean, they're just nuts. Like I said, Duck Dynasty looking for Sasquatch. I mean, they're just crazy. The documentaries I like were the ones made during the 70s and the 80s.
No,
basically just stated what was claimed, put out the evidence you have, and they let the audience draw their own conclusions rather than trying to tell you.
And then in the 90s, I think it was 94, A&E had Ancient Mysteries, and they did a with Bigfoot. That was good.
Yeah.
I thought Monster Quest was fairly a good show as well.
I was on Monster Quest a couple of times.
We are alumni in that show.
Yeah.
And now I'm doing episodes of The Proof Is Out There with Tony Harris.
Uh-huh.
And I've been doing that with Jeff Meldrum, Ken Gerhardt, Cliff Barrickman, and Kathy Strain as part of the Bigfoot panel. And
another good documentary has come out on the trail of Bigfoot, The Origin. I just got it in the mail.
Nice.
Yeah, it's not too bad. It's pretty good. And they did a pretty good damn job on it. Yeah.
Small Town Monsters has been doing some good work.
Oh, yes. They do a pretty good job on it as well, yeah.
Lester's killing me over here. Lester said, what happened to the Bigfoot in the documentary Bigfoot Captured?
You know, Every time someone says they've got the absolute proof, you know right then and there they're blowing it out the both ends. Unless someone lays out a body or a skeleton, don't say things like that. You know, it's just, I think it's just a trick to get people to tune in, but they don't have to. I mean, just say Sasquatch mystery. Here's what we know, and here's what we don't know, and here's what we're trying to find out. You know.
That one Bigfoot captured. Yeah, I was getting phone calls while that was on. And they got him. They got him, Chris. They got him.
And Jeremiah at the Bigfoot Field. No, that's not Jeremiah. The Bigfoot Field Guide. That's Darren Lee. Asked at Thomas, what is the name of the show that had the Freeman photo in it? I didn't catch it and would like to see if it exists out there on the net.
There was a show out of Seattle, Washington, all through the 90s and the 80s. It may even still be going, but I haven't seen it because I haven't had cable television for quite a while. It was called Positively Northwest. And they did a number of programs on the Sasquatch, or Bigfoot as you call it in the States. And I noticed that it was always the same host that always did them. So they obviously had one guy in the staff that had an interest in the subject. And he did the one that had Freeman and his son Dwayne, their earlier photographs on that. And later on, they had him out there in the Blue Mountains with Peter Byrne as well. It was called Positively Northwest. I think you can still find parts of it on YouTube and so forth. Yeah,
somewhere.
Just punch in Positively Northwest Bigfoot. See what you come up with.
Mick asks, have you heard of any reliable reports of Sasquatch near Prince George?
Yes. Prince George, British Columbia, yes. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many in total, but I have to look back through the files. But yes, there have been reports in around Prince George. Yes.
And Barb Santee asks, how's Leon, the Buckless crew? Is the Buckless crew still active on YouTube?
Yes, we are. And we're going to be doing a little bit more of that this summer. And Leon just moved into a new house, so he's been a little busy lately. He is recovering nicely, and he's doing okay.
Is he at least living by himself, or is he?
No, I don't know. I never really asked him that. We usually just talk about Sasquatch. I really don't know that much about him, quite frankly.
We miss Leon. We haven't seen him in a while. So.
Yeah. No, he's still around. Yeah.
So if you talk to him, tell him we're all asking for him, and
Roger that.
Pop on in. You know. Jen asks, Thomas, what is the best footprint you have seen personally?
It would have to be a set of tracks that I found in August of 1986, known as the Baldbeard Creek tracks. These are the tracks that convinced me that there was something to the Sasquatch and not to give up on it. And to my ex-wife's chagrin, said I am not giving up. So, yeah, those are the best set of footprints I ever found after a sighting by the visiting American couple. They never found the tracks. I did. I saw them. And,
so did they have a sight? They had a sighting, or
yes, it's known as the Baldbeard Creek incident of August 1986. An American couple from Salt Lake City. That was Expo year. Expo was going on in Vancouver. They spent a week in Vancouver doing what she wanted to do, going to Expo. And the second week they were doing what he wanted to do, was camping and fishing. And they were in this campground right along the Chilliwack River. It's now called Riverside Recreation Area. Back in 1986, it wasn't named. And they saw this thing sniffing at a stringer of trout they had hanging on a hook on a tree, and it took it and walked away with them. Another guy saw it, came running up to them, and there were two other guys at the far end of the campground who really didn't see anything. I heard about it from, I believe, the guy who came running up, and he just got a glimpse of it, and he told me something just happened. If I had been 15 minutes later, I would have missed him. I drove in through the exit, and there was this pickup truck coming out. They were just leaving with a camper on it, with Utah plates on it. And I asked them, did you hear about anything being strange? And she said, oh, you mean the Bigfoot? And the husband just shot a look at her like, but after I calmed them down and convinced them, they put off their leaving from it out and told me the whole story. And after they left, I went across the road, which is a paved road now, but it was a dirt road in 86. And along the banks of Bald Bear Creek, I saw these footprints. And they were probably the best set of tracks. I cast 2 of them. And in the ferns and stuff, there were like over 100 of them. I mean, there were, but most of them were just like indentation in the fern and the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, it looks like a man looking for his keys. And I'm convinced that, assuming the story is true, that maybe it was stopping and seeing if it was being followed. And then it carried on to a rock slide there on the side of Ford Mountain, and that's where the tracks disappeared. I spent 3 days there looking into that one, yeah. And that was the best set of tracks, and that would convince me, because at the time, my ex-wife was giving, put the Sasquatch in the back burner and put on, concentrating more important things, right? Yeah. Well, that was the end of that. Yeah. And there was no way I was going to quit at that point. No.
Yep. Next question up from OT. Hello, OT. Question: do you have more hope in discovering Bigfoot with the recent rediscovery of the Javan tiger, which was considered extinct since the 80s or 90s?
I think my greatest hope, and unfortunately, the trend seems to be going the other direction. The trend seems to be pointing to its non-existence more than to its existence. And like what we were talking about at the beginning, the cameras. It bothers the hell of me those cameras have never picked one up. It bothers the hell of me that so many people with dash cams haven't got a good, clear image of. I mean, you go on YouTube, there's hundreds of videos of bears getting hit by cars, deers getting hit by cars, moose getting hit by cars, blah, 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 or just wildlife crossing and not hit at all. Why hasn't something come up? Why?
Do you think possibly it's because it's a primate and a little more intelligent at understanding what a road
Oh,
is?
we got a lot of video of people getting hit too.
Yeah, well, our people tend to be a little pig-headed, though, and a little egocentric. Oh, I can make it.
Yeah, there have been alleged collisions between Sasquatch and cars before. They haven't been killed, but they have been incidents with cars before, very close calls, like the one we were talking about earlier, the Terry Reams I-84 incident of December the 6th, 1975. And several witnesses, and it actually struck a camper. Yeah.
There was another one in Louisiana as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where and there was actually blood evidence, and the police didn't test it because it was the 80s, but there was they noted significant damage on the car.
Yeah.
And they noticed that whatever it was, something large had walked into the woods, and they didn't bother go looking for it.
Yeah, and there was a truck driver in Oregon who claimed he hit one, and he actually, they were going to fire him because for insurance purposes, his bosses wanted him to say he hit a bear. And he said, no, this thing was on 2 legs. And there was damage and hair and everything on the grill, but no one did anything about it.
So I think that kind of negates that argument that no Bigfoot has ever been hit before.
Yeah. But why doesn't something like this happen when people got dash cams? So many cars have dash cams now.
I don't know. You know, there are a lot of dash cam, but you know what? The dash cam. Excuse me.
Uh-oh.
The dash cam, the whole dash cam phenomenon, I think, is, not every car in the U.S. has dash cams. Most of them do not.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's more of a European thing where a lot of Europeans have dash cams. Because that's, you look at dash cam videos, a lot of them are coming from European nations. Maybe even in Canada, they use more dash cams than we do here in the United States. But
Russia, everybody's got one. Yeah.
Yeah, in Russia, you got to. But yeah, I don't know, hopefully something will come out. Like I said, the dash cam video I recall is you have that one in Russia, which people, anything from Russia to me is suspect.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Georgia dash cam video, which the sheriff made this allegation that he investigated it. Well, why did the number one officer in the county investigate? It just didn't make any sense to me, other than the fact that he didn't want a bunch of people running around the woods with guns.
Mm-hmm.
So he came up with a quick cover story to take care of that, because literally, when a cop turns around, he starts yelling into the woods, "Hey," one would think if you're hoaxing or joking, you'd come out and say, "Sorry, that was me."
Well, Deputy Sheriff Herlingen, his name was, in late 1960s in Washington, actually stopped his patrol car and had his gun drawn on the damn thing.
Yep.
And he was not hired the next year because he wouldn't change his story. The sheriff wanted him to change his story, and he refused to do it. Yeah.
Yep. And of course, we have the Brian Goslin incident, the incident at Bear Road
Mm-hmm.
here in Whitehall, New York. Very same thing. He was on off-duty police officer. There it is, flashlight gun. There it is,
Mm-hmm.
15, 20 feet in front of him, looking at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right, back to
Boris Khan has got a good question. Which classic story would you like to see as a movie? Ape Canyon, Ostman, Jacko, Bowman, or Ruby Creek?
All of the above.
Me too.
Yeah, that would be kind of cool.
That's a good question.
But accurately done.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Accurately done, not with a lot of fiction thrown into it.
Well, unfortunately, that is the way of Hollywood.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've been pulling for a good Albert Ostman movie for years now, and I hope somebody out there can hear me and do it one of these days.
Well,
If you look at all of those stories, them in itself, without changing any of the facts, are very dramatic.
Yeah.
Very interesting, very fascinating.
mm-hmm.
And there's ways of adding some extra time into it, maybe a little fiction without really going against the storyline. Like, maybe, the first half hour of the Osman story, have him, out on in the wilderness, experiencing nature, and then noticing, as he said in his story, noticing these little oddities that have been going on. Like, I noticed that, or I heard that. And then finally the incident. I think that could make a compelling hour and 45-minute film.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the aftermath, and went through, yeah. But then that's more of a documentary type thing. If you're doing a movie, no, they would tend to make it more interesting. Like the thing would come out of the bush roaring like King Kong, and I've had some of my own stuff reenacted on the paranormal side by certain shows, and I'm like, that's a little bit of a stretch, but. And Mrs. Jenny Chapman wouldn't be a short 4'11" First Nation woman. She'd look like a model.
Yeah.
Played by Scarlett Johansson.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Question: do you have access? This is from Mick. Do you have access to Bill Miller's research material?
Oh, quite a bit of it, yes. The late Bill Miller passed away a couple of years ago. We were basically partners for the longest time while he ran his business here. And Bill had one big drawback, in my opinion. One huge drawback. He never wrote things down. He never wrote things down. And I used to get on him about that all the time. And he said, he'd look at me and say, I see you doing it, typing out all these detailed interviews, and it takes you like a couple of days. I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I said, yeah, but what are you going to, I wish the hell he had written something down when he went down to the Ford Motion Picture Lab there in the early 2000s and actually talked to the people who produced the PG film. He went there for another reason, but the subject came up and they said, oh, yeah, we produced that movie here. We showed it on the wall. Well, tell me about it. But he didn't write any of it down. Didn't take names. That was Bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But still, that was a big question about the Patterson Gimlin film, is where the hell will that film get developed?
Ford Motion Picture Lab in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, and you found it. It was like, all right.
Yeah.
And that solved the big mystery.
Mm-hmm.
So, next question is from Lester Taylor. Thomas, has Canada eased up with you on Facebook yet? Whatever that means.
No. A matter of fact, every episode of On the Shoulders of Giants has been taken down. They've taken it off, and they won't allow it to be shown in Canada. Something to do with media. It's basically Trudeau censoring everything again, but it's basically, I'm not sure that the Gallagher, but anything that's media, there's supposed to be a deal where Canadian media is supposed to have. I don't understand it, but a lot of stuff in the States we can't see here on Facebook anymore. But there are 2 episodes on the Shoulders of Giants that were done on a different platform other than Blog Talk that were not taken down. Right? I told Diane we got to try to find another platform because I can't show them on my Facebook page anymore. All I can do is post a link. Yeah.
Right.
And you have to go to Blog Talk site to actually listen to the show.
So here's a suggestion: is since it's an audio show,
right?
If you get hooked up with Spotify for podcasters, they will also disseminate that material to iHeartRadio, Amazon. You can create all these different accounts and have those episodes disseminated. Like this show itself. What we do is after the show, we download them and then we file it we send it over to Spotify. What it does on YouTube platform, it creates an audio episode, but it's Spotify, the video shows, and as well as it being the audio portion being podcast across iHeartRadio, Castbox, Breaker Radio, Google, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and that's automatically done by Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
So there's an avenue there for you to kind of propagate the show a little bit outside the realm of just Facebook alone. And then, people can follow that link to their favorite. They can listen to it in the car. They can listen to it at work.
Yeah,
So
it's a little strange, though, because I actually downloaded all the episodes from On the Shoulders of Giants, and I actually tried to post them myself right off my own hard drive, but it won't let me do it. I can post video, but I can't post audio only things. I don't know why, but I can't. It won't let it happen.
A little bit weird. A little bit weird. Yeah, so I would suggest try shuffling that over to Spotify.
Mm-hmm.
To let you guys know what's going on over in the chat here, Finding the Trackway says they should make a movie about Bigfoot being hit by a car. The driver takes it home thinking it was dead. Then it comes to life, befriends that family, and the driver protects it from hunters.
Harry in the head?
Yeah, I think that's been done before.
Been done.
And
yes, I do think the character of Jacques Lafleur was based on René de Hendon. And I think the other guy was a combination of Grover Krantz and John Green.
Ristel says, at Finding the Trackways that need a platypus in that storyline.
Well, you mean none of those characters were created by Cliff Crook? Tom?
No.
There's another character that's faded into obscurity as Clifford Crook.
He was in. We got along with Cliff. I never had a problem with him, but I think he got real upset at Rene because he came out with this weird. I found a bell shaped fastener on the Patterson Gimlin suit. And he came out with that, and it was the weirdest looking bell fastener I ever saw. And of course, we thought it was nonsense. And I think he didn't appreciate it. And that's when he started going crazy a little bit there against Rene.
Yeah.
And then suddenly he just vanished and it was scary. That and the fact he was sent a photograph by a ranger showing a Sasquatch in a puddle of water looking up at the camera. Remember that one?
Yeah, except for it was just a miniature because of the grass.
That's not a Cliff Crook photo. He said it was sent to him by somebody. Yeah. And he was just passing it on. And of course, we investigated it. It was obviously a doll, of some kind, but he got upset that he wasn't back up on that because he thought it was real. But
and then he made the wild accusation that he claimed to have been the technical advisor on Harry and the Hendersons, although his name shows nowhere up in the credits.
No, as a matter of fact, John Green wanted to sue the movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wanted to sue the movie because they took one of his books, that scene when Lithgow is looking through, he calls, just his journal, and it's obviously John Green's on the track of the Sasquatch, and they're taking a picture up and slapped in that LaFleur guy in there. So they used his book to do that without asking permission, but they told, well, you know, the money you would spend on suing them would be far more than what you would get, so why bother? Yeah.
Right. Kaiju Ninja 1985 asks, what is the most compelling case you have investigated?
Oh, there's a number. Well, we talked about the Bald Creek tracks. That's probably my favorite. The two incidents on Bridal Falls Forest Service Road in August of 2008, where two different individuals saw an animal on the same Forest Service Road less than half a kilometer apart, about 4 hours apart, and they didn't know about each other. I think that one's intriguing.
Interesting,
yeah. The Crandall Campground incident in Alberta. That's probably my favorite Alberta one in all the years I spent there. That was the two sets of campers who had the encounter at Crandall Lake Campground, Waterton Lakes National Park in Victoria Day Long Weekend, 1988. That's a favorite one of mine. I've spent a lot of a doctor recently who saw one not cross in front of his car, but in his rearview mirror crossing in behind his car in Golden Ears Park. And he doesn't want anyone to know he saw a Sasquatch because of his profession, and I agreed to keep his name confidential. That's a very convincing sounding case. And if the Sasquatch does not exist, it never did, I got to wonder what it is that these people saw. Yeah. Because you got to remember, when you're dealing with an eyewitness, there's only three possibilities, right? Only three. One, they saw a Sasquatch. Two, they mistook something or something for a Sasquatch. Or three, they're lying. Those are the only three possibilities. So if they're not lying and there is no Sasquatch, then everything has to be mistaken identity.
That's it falls right into a question. Yeah. OT, he said.
And to give you an example of that, recently, in my files here, just had a case last August, not too far from here. Mm-hmm. Tracks at Morris Creek Railway. You can see that there, okay?
Yeah.
These footprints were found not too far from, you can see the track there?
Okay, can see it, yeah.
Yeah, right. Several footprints were found. And then, just down the railway tracks, he photographed a blurry picture of this figure walking along the tracks.
Oh, man.
Okay.
Can you make that big, Steve?
Yep, I'm working on it.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Okay. And here's the footprints that he saw. One of the footprints he saw just moments before. Okay. This man he's not claiming he saw a Sasquatch. He's just wondering. He thought he'd tell me about it. And I noticed that, first of all, this trail is a very popular trail leading down to a hiking trail along this particular creek. And first thing I thought was wrong is the footprints only have 4 toes. Mm-hmm. And I realized this isn't an attempt to fake a Sasquatch footprint. You can get sandals here that have naked feet, human feet, on the underside. They're meant as a joke item. Not Sasquatch. It's just, bare feet walking, right?
Yeah.
And you can buy them. And the fact that he saw a figure on the tracks around the same time, and it's not obscured by fog or anything, that's smoke because it was a forest fire in the hills at that time. I don't know what that is. Is that 2 people walking along the tracks? Is that a bear on the tracks? Who knows? But I think it's a combination of 2 incidents that happened right at the same time that made this individual think, geez, is there something here? When in fact, it was just visual misinterpretation. Yeah. But that's why you investigate and you follow up.
Yeah.
You find out.
OT said if Bigfoot doesn't exist, then what are people seeing out there?
Well, like I said, if the Sasquatch does exist, that's one possibility. 2, mistaken identity. In other words, they're mistaking something or someone for a Sasquatch, or 3, they're lying. And I'm afraid number 3, and this is a fact, gentlemen, number 3, people are lying. That happens a lot.
Yeah, well, especially on social media.
Yeah, especially on social media. So in many ways, and again, I'm only expressing my own opinion, one of the worst things that ever happened to this research was the invention of the internet. Because it's a soapbox for every snake oil salesman out there.
Yeah, it turned out to be a curse rather than a benefit.
Well, it's a benefit, but it's got its drawbacks.
Yeah,
yeah,
lots of them.
Yeah, lots of them. But a lot of people mistake things. I didn't know deer growled.
Yeah,
But they do. I didn't know it was possible for wildlife to have bright red eye reflection, but it does.
Yeah.
You know,
Or
I
even
found that out myself. Yeah.
or even blue reflection. I've seen that too.
Yeah.
And I never knew bears can't growl.
Yeah.
Bears can't growl.
No, they make that weird noise that's sort of like
They
more of a
smack their
group.
lips. And
Yeah.
they chatter out.
Yeah. And I heard something growling behind me when I was looking up near the entrance to Sasquatch Provincial Park. And I thought, oh God, what's behind me? I looked and it's a mule deer. I never heard a deer growl before, but it did.
What the hell? Okay, next question. Why does nobody talk about Robert W. Morgan anymore?
Well, Robert Morgan sort of went weird on us.
Right.
Okay. He's into that First Nations spirituality stuff and other dimension stuff and stuff like that. So he kind of took himself out of it, really. Yeah.
And he has gotten up there in age too, so he's not really.
Oh yeah, he's old. He's been around a long time. He's been around longer than I have.
Yep.
Yeah.
I remember seeing him in a documentary, I think from the 1970s.
Oh, he made an excellent documentary film, and the reason why I love the film is not so much because of the research that was done on it, it's because it was filmed in the Mount St. Helens region just a year before he woke up. So you get an excellent idea of how beautiful that area was before the eruption of 1980. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Tackle Tactician asked, what about the researcher that was in Tennessee? That's Janice Carter, the Janice Carter form for the Bigfoot knocks on the door asking for garlic. That was Janice Carter's Bigfoot fox knocking on the door asking for garlic.
Yes. She had names for them and stuff like that. Never got a single photograph, but she did take a picture of a stick and dropped.
Yeah. And then what's his name? Igor
Bertzev.
Yeah.
He lived with
goes
her for a
over
while.
there, and he didn't see anything, but he believes her.
Well, Igor is
Great science.
He has done a number of things lately that makes us question his sanity.
Yeah,
I mean,
phone call,
I could never understand, and a lot of us, John, Yana Perez, couldn't understand why Rennie was so mad at the Russians. Well, now we know, because they're gullible as hell. Yeah.
Or they're, I know years ago, this goes back 12 years ago, 13 years ago, when Meldrum went over to Russia, he basically said that it just seemed like a dog and pony show to him. There wasn't anything science, and Igor was kind of like the spin doctor there, trying to get everybody coordinated to all these different little fanfare things just to drum up tourism for this area of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
I met Dimitri, and matter of fact, we picked Dimitri up at the airport when we were going down to the Willow Creek Symposium in 2003. Wow, he was absolute. Like Igor, he was absolutely convinced by the Carter Coy nonsense.
Really? Wow, I did not know that.
Yeah. I spent half that trip asking him why. Yeah.
That's very sad. But then again, I think it has a lot to do with their culture.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Janice Carter may have actually had a sighting and then that
I doubt
went
it.
to her head?
I doubt it, because she started associating first with Mary Green, the late Mary Green.
Yeah.
And
Mary Green wrote a book, didn't she?
Yeah, and Janice Carter did too.
Yeah.
But it wasn't really didn't go to like Amazon or anything like that. It was just like a self-published book. Went to a local printer, and so many copies were done.
I remember Mary Green's photographs. They were showing a bush,
Right, but there's Mary and Janice was kind of like Mary's protege, and then she went off and to do the exact same thing that Mary Green was doing. So to me, there was no original sighting. I think she kind of latched onto this, and in their own, for psychological reasons, she just began to emulate this as well. I think sometimes.
And then Adrian Erickson actually bought the property.
Yeah. Oh boy, they were milking him.
Oh my God! Yeah. Well, paid off for her. She sold the house and property.
Yeah.
Man, it wasn't for peanuts. So,
yeah.
And then she tried to claim the Sasquatch followed her to the new place.
Well, the funny thing is, and this is a very little known fact, is the people with the Kentucky ORV footage. Remember the Kentucky ORV, which is the property in Crittenden, Kentucky that Erickson had bought. Mm-hmm. The people that sold that property actually bought a house by Erickson, and they claimed that the Bigfoot was following them there too.
They're just toting them along,
And they were trying to get another researcher to pay them $10,000 to see these Bigfoot that followed them.
Yeah.
So you see that thing, and even Chris knows because Chris received a phone call from the same person the other researcher or alleged researcher got the phone call from that brought him there in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
And Chris, all of a sudden, I forget when something broke, it was some news of something broke. I think it might have been the shooting. It was right around the time of the shooting in Kentucky. And then next thing you know, Chris gets a phone call on his answering machine. Hi, this is the guy's name. And hey, I can show you a place up near Crittenden where there's a Bigfoot. Right. Same guy. So they're always trying to sell. Yeah, they're always trying to sell the same story. And the reason,
Donald, it's coming.
Okay.
No, I think this question has been deleted, but no, it's coming. It's very next one, Donald.
Here we are from Don. You ever look into clod cases like the mom and kids by the house on the creek? My memory is bad.
Yeah.
Could you repeat that question?
Look into clod cases like the mom and kids by the house on the creek. I think he's talking about Ruby Creek.
Oh, well, the Ruby Creek, I know quite a bit about that. It's one of our classic tales.
Right.
Yeah. Problem is, it happened in 1941.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah.
So a lot of people are either dead or not talking or in a nursing
I
home.
know. I've talked to a fellow named One Feather who was the Chapman's grandson.
Right.
Certain things, like it was always stated, and mainly because Ivan T. Sanderson's book, all three children they had at the time of the incident died of various things. I believe one died of measles. I think the little girl died of consumption, and they had a second batch of kids, and it was always stated that the second batch of kids drowned with the adults in the boat on the Fraser River. That's not true. That didn't happen. The adults died, and I don't know if one or two of the kids died, but no, not all the kids were killed. So, yeah, they continued to live. And the family did not immediately abandon the house. They stayed there another week, and other relatives continued to use the house after them. But what really caused the house to be abandoned was in 1948 was the last big flood of the Fraser River when almost all this property was 3 feet underwater.
Okay. Chris, you're up for the next question.
Let me see if I got any more to star here real quick. There we go.
You're doing a great job here. You want me to just read them?
I get it. I'm going to do this when you read the rest, okay?
All right.
This is another one from Boris Kahn, and he said, who would you like to see return to active research? Robert Morgan, Autumn Williams, Cliff Crook, or someone else?
Who would I like to see go back to active research? Was that the question?
Yes.
Yeah. And it says Robert Morgan, Autumn Williams, Cliff Crook, or someone else?
Don Keating.
Don Keating.
Don Keating.
Okay. Rick Knoll.
Yes. Oh,
He's kind of backed out of it now. At least I haven't heard from him. Mark Brody from Manitoba. I haven't heard from him in 10 years, but he was a straightforward guy. Yeah.
Can you get the mixed question there, Steve, next?
I'll. We're gonna find out tomorrow. It's not really my back; it's my neck. C7, T1, T2, that area. Basically, Jeff asked me how my back is doing. I had an MRI Friday. I get the read tomorrow morning. We'll see what's going on with it. See if I'm going back to work or I need to stay out. Am I still having spasms here and there? If I exert myself, yes. But thanks for asking, Jeff. Jen asked, Thomas, always wondered, what is the skeleton on the bookcase behind you?
Oh, that's Grover Kranz's Gigantopithecus black eye recreation.
There you go.
Yep.
Tackle Tactician asks, Thomas, have you ever had any reports seeing Bigfoot swimming?
Swimming? Yes. Yes,
Bigfoot.
I have. Both in Harrison Lake and on the coast, especially between the islands, north of North Vancouver Island and the mainland.
And he doing the backstroke?
No, usually people say all they see is the head above water. They don't see it's not doing an overhead stroke, more like a frog. I mean, all you see above the water most of the time is the head. I remember one guy, John Miles, and he saw 2 or 3 of them coming out through binoculars on the other side of Harrison Lake, and the big one, which he assumed was male, actually shook itself off before it went into the trees. And I would have thought that story was a bit, but his ex-girlfriend was with him at the time, and she said she saw them too, and she backed him up, and she's got no reason to back him up because she hates the guy now.
I'm going to jump to a question here. Jeff Strader asked Steenburg, when are you going to retire that old SUV? He already did. So he's answered that one already earlier.
Are you talking about the Land Rover?
Yeah.
Yeah. She's history.
Mick asks, did you ever work with Don Keating?
Yes. I visited Don Keating. He was in Ohio, and I went with him to that place where his video of a possible white creature was taken, and examining that. I don't think it was white. I think it was more of a gray color, whatever was picked up on the video. It was just the video was overexposing because half the foliage in the trees looked unusually white as well. Yeah. I spent some time with Don Keating in Ohio there, and I spoke at his conference one time, I think in 2000. But Don Keaton sort of like retired now. He doesn't really participate in
actually, a couple of years ago, Don Keating was at the Sasquatch Triangle Conference, gave a lecture, emceed it.
Yeah.
And was selling some of his books and talking and stuff like that. So Don did return for a couple of Sasquatch Triangle conferences out in.
I remember when he started, he tried to do a few homemade documentaries, and he's basically standing there. And when it was like a 15-minute introduction to his video, and it's nice and calm. But by the time that 15 minutes over, I think he was about to get hit with a tornado. When it picked up that much, and it looked like he was struggling. Oh, poor Don.
Well, that's probably why he turned into a weatherman.
Yeah, more likely.
The footage he had, that was pretty interesting. Old VHS footage. That was interesting.
And there was another interesting footage of something's in that thicket there, but you never really get a good look at it.
Mm.
Yeah.
2 more questions, and then we're going to have to wrap it up because it's already 10:50 already, how time flies.
Oh.
It's amazing how quick it is when we have a great guest like you, Tom. Kaiju Ninja asked, what cases did you investigate that turned out to be hoaxes?
Oh, quite a few of them. Randy Brisson. The one I just showed you. Well, it's not a hoax. It was a case of mistaken identity. Right. Certain cases of rock throwing. I mean, there's been quite a few of them I've looked into where the people I've determined were lying to me.
Yeah.
The most famous one when I started in Alberta is they said they had a white-colored creature and they were expecting me to show up at a certain time, and I got there about 45 minutes earlier, and there was a woman in the white costume walking a cat on a leash.
Very cool. I guess
without the head on. They weren't expecting me for a little while. That's probably the most blatant example I can say.
Wow, there they are already in costume for your appearance, and you showed up early. I'm like, hey.
And after giving them a blast, I mean, after all, it did take me over an hour to get out there. You know,
that was kind of.
And I was younger and more energetic that day. Someone said Sasquatch, I was gone, right? And and I get there and I see this woman walking a cat on a leash, and she's got a sort of like a white, really bad costume on. Without the head. The head's on the picnic table. They weren't expecting me for a little while yet.
You walk up, hey, is this the Bigfoot here?
Yeah.
Case solved. Oh man.
Yeah, you back in the day, you mentioned Bigfoot. Tom moved faster than Jack Ruby at a perp walk.
Yeah. I don't know how many times when I was living in Alberta, I drove all the way to the West Coast or Bella Coola just to find out the guy where other people said he was unreliable, or the incident actually happened 3 weeks ago, not 3 days ago, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Okay, so that's that one. And lastly, Grasshopper asked, Thomas, is your friend John Kirk's sighting credible?
If he's referring to the one outside Sasquatch Provincial Park in 2017, I think it's a very strong possibility that group of people did see something. Yeah. We found tracks there a couple of days later and cast 2 of them. Yeah.
And somebody also threw in there, Bigfoot Field Guy, what do you think of Thomas Seward?
Well, Thomas is a First Nation from the Clock-Clock-Walk band in Vancouver. I've spent a whole week with him on something that was ridiculously called Operation Sea Monkey in 2016. I would have called it Expedition Searching for Apes or something like that, and not Operation Sea Monkey, for God's sake. But Seward was our main guy because he knew that area like the back of his hand, and he knew the history of everything in that area. He's kind of like me here in the Harrison area.
Oh, Grasshopper just let us in on a little secret. He was at the sighting.
Yeah, I remember you. You were there, Grasshopper. Yeah, I remember it. Yeah. I think it's very credible. But again, there were contradictions by the witnesses.
Which is common.
Yeah.
I've gotten witnesses to crimes that one saying
I kicked myself for that one because they actually stopped in to see me here in Mission before they went out and had this encounter, and there was just no more room in the truck. So I said, okay, I'll give this one a pass.
So I got a question. I got 2 questions for you.
Yeah.
Question number 1, have you seen the thermal video from Weird and Wild, West Virginia? And they were doing a Bigfoot expedition actually with a group of people and got something pretty incredible on thermal.
Yeah, well, I'd have to see it, man. He's got,
I'll
it doesn't sound familiar to me, no.
Yeah, I'll get you the link. And then finally, the squeaky footage from the late. Wow, sorry, my old age is showing up today. Michael Green.
Squeaky footage.
Yeah, his thermal, the Michael Green.
Oh, you're talking about with the thing is grabbing stuff off the log,
right? Right.
I don't buy it. No.
Okay.
I don't buy it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Yep.
Not that one. No. There is a thermal from the Olympic project in that area where there's obviously a ridge, and you could see like from the chest to the shoulders and the hair up looking over, and actually cows cross in between the camera.
Yeah, I've seen that one. Yeah,
that's interesting. It's also very interesting why the cows don't seem to be reacting to it at all. Right. Yeah.
What do you think of the Bart Coutinho thermal vid? Have you seen the Bart Coutinho one?
I'll tell you what the biggest problem with the thermals is. To the average public, it means very little. It's just Casper the friendly ghost in the dark background. Yeah.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
But as researchers, I think that's a pretty damn good tool we have.
It's a damn good tool to have. Yes, it is.
But I don't know if you saw the Barcatino video. They actually videotaped it for, I think it was like a 15-minute video. And they were actually got him on video throwing rocks or throwing something and moving about. And there was more than one. And they went to recreate it, and they had much to their credit. And Barcatino's a pretty stand-up guy.
Mm-hmm.
The only bad thing is that in the mix there, sound asleep at the camp was Justin Smeha. But that was at the time when Smeha was pretty active in going out with these people. But yeah, the video looks very interesting.
He's the man who claimed to have shot one, isn't he?
Huh? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It turned out to be, well, it was an excellent takedown of the Ketchum Project, which people failed to see, that he sent part of the sample to her, took the other sample and privately tested it, and waited until Ketchum started saying, oh, this is our, obviously this would have been the centerpiece of the study. Here we have a witness that says he shot one, and it mysteriously has all the same DNA as all these other samples we have, of being half human and half something else, angel DNA, whatever. And Catino was like, Smeha was like, nope, it's bear. The sample I have is bear. So who knows what that whole story is, still claimed, but his story changed so many times. Like we were the first ones to have him. We did a 3-way show.
The biggest giveaway is when they altered the story to conform to the criticisms or the questions.
Correct.
If it happened, it shouldn't change at all. But they start adjusting to try to have an explanation for your question.
Right.
Say, well, that's not what you said before. And before you know it, they've lost track of what they said before.
His story got more dramatic too.
Yeah. Choked one out. And again, like I say, as an investigator, interrogator, when I started seeing that, this is all baloney. So anyway, it's now 10:58. Chris, we got to wrap up, man.
Oh, okay.
Real quick before we go, I want the Tackle Tactician said, thank for DM reply. You're very welcome, and anybody's more than welcome to message me on Facebook, but you got to keep in mind, I only sign in average once a month. So I am not a very social media type person. But he's working on a possibly going to set something up, some sort of Bigfoot shindig over in Kentucky, which is about an hour and a half away. And keep us posted on that, because we would like to share that and give it a little kick on the channel if you do get it put together. But also, while I'm flapping my jaws, I want to thank Mr. Thomas Steenburg for joining us tonight. It's been an honor. It's always been a pleasure. This show went by so fast. I can't believe it. It seems like we've been 15 minutes and it's already been 2 hours.
Real fast.
Sure is a lot better with the camera and the mic rather than like the first time I was on your show, Steve, you were trying to hold up a cell phone.
Oh, yeah. How far we've come.
Yeah. It was a pleasure, boys, and just say to your audience, everybody, stick to the facts and never deviate from the facts.
Amen. Amen. And, Thomas, I want to thank you, too, as well. And, excuse me, and everybody in the audience, I want to thank you guys. You are the world's greatest audience. Great questions tonight.
Absolutely.
You guys make the channel what it is. We appreciate y'all. And much love to you guys. And, hey, we will be back here this Friday night. It's coming Friday for the Bigfoot news. And we're keeping it positive, folks. Keeping it positive. That's all we can do. So, folks, on behalf of me and everybody else, stay safe, keep healthy. God bless. And, of course, keep on squatching. Catch you all here Friday night.
We thank you for being here with us on Squatch-D TV. If you haven't taken the time yet, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. And oh yes, hit that notification bell too. We don't want you to miss anything. If you really like our content, you should consider becoming a member. And it's really inexpensive and a great way to support not only the show, but honest Bigfoot research. Everyone have a great week. Be safe and God bless. We will see you all here next time on Squatch-D TV. Keep on squatching.